Let's now talk about the development of English language. It's customary to divide the history of anything which is being studied into different periods. This process is called periodization. Similarly, the history of languages is also divided into various periods, which are determined by some external events and important dates. Let's have a cursory look at the history of English language. History of English language may be divided into pre-Old English, which dated from 449 AD, and according to a tradition, 3 Germanic tribes, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, arrived in Britain from their original homeland in Scandinavia, and they began English language. Old English is the next period, which dates around 700 to 1100 AD. It is from the 8th century that we possess the first surviving English text, and this was the period which actually gives us some text, original text of English language. Then Middle English, and this era lasts from 1100 to 1500 AD. Then Early Modern English from 1500 to about 1800. And then the later Modern English, which includes English to present era. Pre-Old English. In Germanic, Angles were called Angli. Then it transformed into Engli. And from there, England came into being, the word England, because it combined Engli with land and it turned into England. And similarly, from Engli, we got the word English, which is a language now. During this era, 2 separate Anglian dialects of English were developed by 2 separate groups living across the banks of River Humber. The one who lived on the north of River Humber, that dialect was called Northumbrian, and the one which was produced on the south of the River Humber, that was called Mercian. Saxon's dialect was called West Saxon, whereas Jute's dialect was called Kentish. Overall, there were 4 main dialects at that time. In the beginning, it was Northumbrian dialect which held power in language, literature, and culture. However, after Viking invasions, which lasted from 793 to 865, which becomes 9th century, the culture leadership went to Saxons, Anglo-Saxons, and then during the same period, we see a famous chronicle by Parker, which is in fact Anglo-Saxon chronicle. This established the superiority of the Saxons, West Saxons dialect, and that became the leading dialect in England. In Old English, we can see that we had 26 alphabets including consonants and vowels. In the beginning, there were very few words of general use, like the words of kinship. We had father, mother, swester instead of sister and daughter. So these were few words of kinship which were used at that time, and there were only 2 dominant demonstratives, which were that and this. It was so different that the modern or contemporary user of English language may think it incomprehensible for himself or herself. Modern English started from 1660 onwards, and this period is known as Restoration period as well, because it's marked by the restoration of the monarchy of Charles II. And during this period, the literature written in English language focused on the restoration of the literature which was produced in the era of King Augustus. In addition, the publication of Samuel Johnson's Dictionary of the English Language in 1755 and Robert Lowe's Grammar during the same era were other hallmarks which paved the way for further standardization of English language. the grammarians of this era focused on correcting the inappropriation or misuses of English language in various daily uses. At the same time, it was Webster's spelling book and his American Dictionary of English Language, which also paved the way for the standardization of English language in America. And these were some of the highlights of this era, which actually extended the sway of English language over other languages in the world as well.